Hey everyone, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hi.
So this week, Doug got a code for the new game Birthday's the Beginning from NIS America. And I think a good place to start with this game is you explaining what on earth this is, because I had never heard of it, and I know you played the demo or something like the Japanese demo a month or two ago, and we're super pumped about this.
Yeah. So this is a game by the creator of Harvest Moon. It's I think his company is called Toy Box Incorporated. They've only done like two or three games. I think this is the first one. I think this is actually the first one to get to America. This was a game that actually I literally I had heard about just because it's like from the Harvest Moon creator. Here is some pictures in a Japanese magazine or something like that. I was like, okay, this just looks interesting to me. Um, oh man, where to even start with this game?
What is it? What do you do? All I
Yeah,
know is
that's
there's
that's the
dinosaurs. There's dinosaurs, right?
That's the hard part is actually describing what you do. So I guess the genre is probably the first thing to like look at because this is not like an adventure game. This is an action game. This is not a simulation, but it kind of is. Um, so do you know those games you used to play? I know this is a weird way to start, but do you ever play those like screensaver games where you have to raise a pet like a tarantula or a goldfish or
Like
it's
a
a top?
Tamagotchi?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Tamagotchi if the Tamagotchi instead of a single creature was all of the evolutionary chain.
It's like a big Tamagotchi.
So like a big Tamagotchi, and so basically what it is you are given a small a 3D space, and as your avatar character, which you can name, I name my character Bill. It's like this weird superhero little character, and all like literally all you do is you just raise and lower the geometry of this square you're given. So let's say I kind of go so it's sort of like a grid pattern. So I go over a grid and I can tell my character to I want to raise this one space by 1 unit up, or I want to raise a 3 by 3 grid up a unit up or a unit down. And then zero level is your sea. So if you put anything below zero, it immediately becomes sea. If you put anything above zero, then it becomes land. And I know, and I can see the look on your face that people can't quite see, but this is very confusing.
I'm just
And
picturing
what
like the world building of Sim City, where like before you do any of the fun stuff, it's just like I made a mountain here, and I'm gonna move this here, and I'm gonna move this here. Okay, I think that's the train I want to go with. Start city. Like you're describing like pre-game things as the game in my mind at the moment.
that oh my god, that was bugging me the entire time. I could not figure it out. It's exactly like Roller Coaster Tycoon when you're actually like
Yes.
yeah, when you're doing like the layout of the land. It's very similar to that. So what this does, so you can create ocean or you can create land. And if you create ocean, the temperature of your area raises. And if you create land, then the temperature of your area becomes cooler. And that is I would say primarily the main game mechanic. And that is about it. Um, but what happens is so you have this whole other aspect, this evolutionary chain. The first thing you start out with is this kind of small grid, and the first thing you put is you create water, and then you create like the you get this item that's just this big heart, and you put it in the water, and it's like this is the primordial ooze of all existence. And so like the first thing you do is like, okay, I need to create a temperature that is say 20 degrees, and I create a single cell organism. And then what you can do to that single cell organism is you can evolve it, you can modify it, you can mutate it, and this is all just changing the temperatures. So what you're doing is like you're gradually changing the temperatures of the land and like your organisms that are growing and expanding based on those temperature changes. Um, so basically, what you're doing is you're given this small plot of land it's like constantly just slowly growing with new creatures, new evolutions, new this, new that, that you're sort of controlling by controlling the temperature of the universe of this little plot of land, essentially.
But the only thing you have control of is up and down on the land. Like you can't control anything about these creatures other than choosing like I guess in my mind, like all you're doing, so you're literally just sitting there for you played this for a dozen hours or whatever, and all you did is just raise and lower land, and that affects the temperature.
Well, the thing that's really interesting is that that's what they kind of tell you it does,
Uh huh.
but you find out there's like a million little systems that are going on at once. So okay, so for example, to move from plankton to a say a jellyfish or something, you need to get the land to 20 degrees Celsius. So you get it to 20 or whatever. I don't know exactly what the temperature is. So you raise and lower the land until you get to 20 degrees Celsius or whatever that degree is,
Mm-hmm.
and then suddenly jellyfish appear. But what happens is So you know that okay, I did this, it got to 20 degrees, and then it did this. But there's all these weird subsystems that you're not totally aware of. So besides just raising and lower the lands, like land can get different categories. So it can be like lowlands, which is around sea level, uplands, and uplands, which is around once you get higher up.
Yep.
And then there's also like shallow seas and regular seas and deep seas. And then so what happens is like different creatures can spawn in these different areas, but then the spawning of the creatures is also dependent on the other creatures that are in the area. So this is something like they don't explain to you. So like one of these issues I was having, I had this island that nothing was evolving on. I could not figure out why is nothing evolving on it. And then I realized that it's like, oh, you know what? It's actually not connected to any of the other lands. So let me kind of make like a fake land bridge over to another area and see if the population will then propagate over to this island. And it does.
Whoa. So like you like purposely migrated a species over there just for the sake of them to evolve on that island to put life on that island.
Yeah. But like what I did, like literally what I did. This is why like the actions sound really simple. What I did is I raised the land to create a land bridge, and that was it. So it's kind of cool. So what you do is like, so when you sit there and modify the land, what you do is it's called micro mode. So you're sitting there managing the land. You're sitting there, and then when you're done, you zoom out and you fast forward through time. So you can fast forward through like millions of years of evolutionary time, and then you like what happens is your like little planet starts to grow, and you don't know exactly what happened until you come back. So I'm in Micromato. I'm sitting there making all these changes. Like, okay, I think the temperature will probably get around here. I zoom out. I go forward in time a million years, and I come back, and suddenly there's all these new life forms, and there's these new plants, and there's these new creatures,
Whoa.
and there's these new this. Yeah.
So it's not like this. Like you don't see this like fast forwarding world that's going through as you're going through time. I'm assuming it just like freezes the screen and just pops you back in. So you just have this instant shock, like, oh shit, what's that?
Yeah. So like how they describe it is like when you're actually moving stuff, time is frozen. Like really though, you can see the creatures kind of moving around, and it's sort of like that's real time. But when you zoom out to macro mode, that's when you go with like fast forward in time. And it's really interesting because there's all these really, really complex systems that you're not really aware of. You're sort of just kind of like influencing it like one way or the other. Like you can try like one of the things like you need to get certain creatures, you need to be a certain like literally the only requirement they say is like, okay, have this creature on the board, this creature on the board, and be around this temp. But one of the big issues I actually had in the game was I was trying to get this one creature to spawn and I couldn't figure it out. And it turned out that I just had a lot of predators in the area, and like they don't tell you that. It's just something you need to sort of consider. That it wasn't in like it was in an area that had a lot of predators, so the prey was as soon as it evolved, it get eaten immediately.
That's
And it's
so
really funny
cool.
because yeah, so like the weakest, and it's really funny that species that took me forever. It's like the weakest one as far as I could tell, it was the weakest one in the game. Is the one you need to start growing mammals with. So it's like a tiny lizard. I was just trying to like and there's like what happens is I was trying to spawn this tiny lizard. There's all these dinosaurs around, and I'm trying to spawn this tiny lizard to start a mouse. Like I just knew that like if I make this lizard and evolve it, it'll become a mouse, and like that'll start human existence. And that's the whole point of the game is to evolve from like literally nothing to humans,
That's pretty awesome.
to modern day humans. And it is really cool. And like one of the things I really love about the game is like they constantly kind of expand your play area. Like there's only 4 levels in the game. They tell you, and like level 1 took me 10 minutes. Level 2 took me like a half hour. Level 3 took me like 4 hours. And like level 5, and then like level 4 was like the entire rest of the game.
So this isn't like a civilization type game where like you go through millions of years and in the course of like a couple hours. This is a full 10, 15 hour whatever experience that's just drawn out, essentially like that civilization timeline, but drawn out to 15 years based on, or 15 hours based on how you're playing essentially.
Yeah, and they don't tell you that. Like I didn't know. Like I didn't realize that like my tiny little plot of land, like the decisions I was making there had like repercussions like the entire 15 hours. Like you can sort of reverse things because you have the option to raise and lower land, but it is kind of amazing because like literally the only difference between the levels is just your land expanding. And I don't want to tell you like how big it gets, but it gets like surprisingly big, and it was just really really neat sort of seeing like, okay, like I started with this tiny little plot of land. I got my little creatures, but as soon as like once you start getting like, I don't know, say 100 different creatures on the board, you sort of feel like you're losing control. Like I can sort of like bend these systems just a little bit left and right. Like you have some power ups that can sort of like, you can tell a species to propagate more, or you can evolve it quicker, or something like that. But it really feels like you're just kind of like,
At the whim of the game, essentially, the game systems are running. You have your little buttons you can push that inch it in a direction, but you can't actually sit there and go, I want more cows.
yeah, exactly, exactly. What I can do is like I can create an environment that may facilitate more cows. um, so I mean, like I guess if we want to start getting into like sort of the like I think the game's super interesting, but I can see where people would probably take issue with it is those sort of systems because you really, especially near the end, you feel like you have less and less control, but there's this sort of like explosion of life that you have that is
Yeah.
just it's just interesting to sort of like watch and sort of like experience.
Well, I feel like that's kind of that makes sense. Is I
Yeah.
started with this and I molded this, and it's that it almost makes it sound like it's really organic in the sense of like I started this little thing and I kind of I molded it up a little bit, and then it burst out of control, and I'm just trying to go like, okay, guys, come back, come back, come back. Okay, wait, if I adjust this, then maybe I can get to it. It really feels like it has this cool build to it. That's what's really making me curious about this, is because I like that idea of nothing is, you don't ever have full control over everything. You know what I mean? Like even if you think
Yeah.
about SimCity, Roller Coaster Tycoon, those style games where it's like I can build this thing and say this area is residential, but I need to convince my Sims to get over there and build up some houses. Or I can build this roller coaster in the back corner, but I got to give people a reason to get back there. Like it's that same
Mm-hmm.
idea of I can sit here and I can go, I'm gonna make this area better for cows, but until you actually the game kind of works its way out and going like, okay, yep, I guess you've actually made it so cows would want to be there. They're not there, and I think that's cool because it is that kind of idea of I can really early on I can really set this up, and as you go out, I think if they kept that same level of control, it wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be as interesting.
Yeah, no, that is literally the best explanation I think I could give of it because it is sort of that gray zone of like it is that weird gray zone that I can feel like people would they wouldn't like that because they don't feel like they have control. But I think that sort of excitingness of zooming out, going forward like a million years, like I hope this plan kind of works. Let's go see.
Yeah.
And then you come back and like, oh, suddenly there's a T-Rex, and like suddenly and it's really cool because sometimes you'll get creatures you don't necessarily plan for because like you're playing for this one creature changing the temperatures, but you don't realize like you can see actually what requirements each creature like has. So what happens, like, as you're sort of changing the temperature to get to one creature, you might actually be meeting the requirements of plenty of other creatures, like, in the meantime, including plants and animals and whatever else. So, like, you'll just have, like, oh my god, I made a Brontosaurus. Whoops.
So it just gives you like a library of creatures and says like for a Tyrannosaurus Rex you need to hit these requirements, for a tiger these, for a tarantula these, or whatever it might be, like just a big library of these that the requirements of ahead of time.
Yeah, like they actually show you the entire evolutionary tree like of the game. They think the only thing they really leave hidden is like the names and then the actual like picture of the creature. They kind of give you like a silhouette of the creature, but yeah, it tells
Gotcha.
you all the requirements of every creature in the game right off the bat. So
So you kind
yeah,
of know what to aim for.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And in the game, like for level 1, like literally your goal is like get to this creature. Level 2 is get to this creature. Level 3 is get to this creature. Level 4 is get to this creature. But like just the added complexity of just the expanding map. So I've been really positive about this game. So I think it's time to like talk maybe why this game wouldn't immediately get like really high scores sort of thing is that there's a little bit of wonk to it. I think jank is probably not the right word because jank means that because jank to me means like something didn't work as the game intended.
I got
No, this
caught
game,
on a rock.
yeah, exactly. This game works like as it wants to intend, whether you want it to or not. So like that sort of like lack of control does feel like a little overwhelming sometimes. I'll say that. Game has some. Okay, this is one of the things that like people are gonna immediately turn off if they don't like this sort of thing. It has some real performance issues to the point where I am actually mentioning it in a review because it's not something that ever bugs me. Um, as the game expands and all these calculations are running, like the game just does not run great. Like it was below 30, especially for like my last say 10 hours of the game. Once they start getting really complex, once you start getting a lot of creatures on the board, once you yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like as soon as the game started getting bigger and bigger, um, and I will say like it was noticeable the entire time, and it was kind of disappointing. And I was like, this is a really cool game that is being hindered by performance issues, which is, again, like, if you've listened to any of our stuff, this is not something I would normally talk about unless it was like particularly egregious, and in this game it kind of is. And I would say there's just sort of a general just like kind of wonkiness to it. I will say I got frustrated because I thought I was meeting the requirements of certain creatures, but just because they don't leave those sort of that, like, oh crap, there's predators in the area, it's just like they don't tell you that that's something you need to worry about. They sort of like hint at it, like they give you, like, I would say total dialogue in the game is maybe like 3 pages long of actual stuff. So like you may want to, it's like some creatures like flatlands, and I was like, that's something I just kind of heard and forgot, but it's like every single thing they tell you is they're describing some major component of the system that's not explicitly stated. So yeah, I see, but I don't know. So like when I was done with the game, I was like, this is so freaking unique and so cool and so interesting. But just because it's so far out there, and new, that there's nothing ready to compare it to. So they didn't have a lot to compare. They didn't have a lot to build off of. So there's just that general jankiness of creating something new.
Yeah, because it sounds similar to things that are out there in those simulation, those tycoon games, those kind of things. But it does sound like it's kind of taking that to that next level of, we're going to build a whole giant world. We're only going to give you partial control. But I think a lot of that would just come down to who you are. Like, as you're describing this, this is one of those things where I could sit here and say, I could see myself playing that for a good 10 hours or so. But I can also picture somebody going like, I have no control over this. What's the point of me doing this? I'm moving land and then shit happens. Like, I didn't do anything. So I can almost see, because if you look, like, just out of curiosity, I pulled up some reviews, and it's very much either like, this game's so cool and kind of weird, or this game's so just not great. And I think that's that personality piece of, this is a game intended for a specific person, intended for those people who are willing to go, you know what, I like this idea of, I don't have total control. I shouldn't, and at no point in my own personal life do I really ever have total control of anything. So why would it make sense in this essentially game where I am God that I would have total control over this? Things are going to make their own decisions as they go through. So
it is that sort of like, you just kind of have to give in. Like, but I will say, like, you had said, like, I think you had mentioned at the beginning of the review, I played the Japanese demo of this. I played the Japanese demo of this for 4 hours, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I still had a ton of fun, and I only evolved something to, like, create, like, some, like, crappy coral on the ground, and I could not figure out how to go past that. As I read the English one, I was like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do.
Oops.
But yeah, no, this is a game, like, I really hope there's an English demo for it, because I think it's one of those things, like, you'll immediately tell if you like it or not. When I played the demo and I played the full game, I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted from this. I think the demo is actually a pretty good representation of what you could expect out of the game. So if you play the demo and you don't like it, stay away. I mean, but if the demo is like, oh, this is intriguing, just know that it kind of, like, it very much explodes from there, and it is just a really cool concept. And I really hope there's a birthday too. Oh, also, I didn't mention, I love the art design, and all the creatures are super, super cute, like real cute. Like, they're real cute. They're very bubbly and very cute looking.
To me, that says enough right there. The fact that we got through like a 15-minute review and you forgot to mention art design until, like, where are we at? Like, we're at what? We're at the 18-minute mark, and you forgot to mention art design. That means this game is interesting enough for you to check out.
Yeah, well, Doug's talking about game mechanics first. What the
hell? Doug went 15 minutes without mentioning cute creatures? What is this noise?
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's all I got to say. It's a really unique game. It's got some wonkiness. I would say absolutely try the demo. If you find the demo interesting, just know the game is very, very cool, and that's
Perfect. Well, that'll wrap it up. So we will be back later on. If you like this, please subscribe or follow us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming, probably, whatever one of those it is.
It's at Workforce Gaming, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.